up there. Good morning to everyone. Thank you very much for joining us on our hospitality and tourism webinar. This is the first in a series of webinars that we're going to be having for this industry to help everyone sort of kickstart their reopening and get business and revenue rolling in, and so we can all move forward here. I'd like to introduce Julie Purpura, our main speaker for this morning. Julie has spent more than half her life working in the hospitality industry. She is passionate about educating and engaging customers in the food and craft beverage industry in New York. She has completed her Bachelor of Science in Hospitality and Service Management from RIT in 2010, and she has completed her Master's of Science in Teaching from SUNY Potsdam in 2012. She has been the program coordinator and instructor of hospitality and tourism at JCC for their program, and implemented the new winery management and marketing program and worked closely with industry partners for 5 years. She has worked as education program director at the New York Kitchen, formerly the New York Wine and Culinary Center, and she developed an ongoing series of educational events and programs promoting New York State food and craft beverages, and has taught wine and food pairing courses. She has obtained her Wine Spirit Education Trust certification and knows many people in the industry. And she has organized and executed food, wine, and educational events statewide. So once again, Julie Purpura, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Marshall, for having me, and Jay for having me today. And thank you, everybody, for taking time. I know it's a very busy time for most of you with reopening going on. So thank you very much for taking time. I hope you learn a lot. As Marshall said, this is a kickstart to a ongoing webinar series, and so I'd like this to be engaging. So there is a Q&A bar at the bottom of your toolbar. If you have questions at any point in time, please feel free to type them in, and Marshall and I will address them, or he'll let me know to address them, as well as, if there's something you want to say, or if you have any issues, you can type them into the chat bar. Thank you for the introduction, Marshall. I think that says it all. I want to say I commend all of you in the hospitality industry for going through the operational compliance procedures to reopen. And I think, though, that we're in unprecedented times and certainly are facing challenges we never thought of before, there is opportunity and possibly a silver lining on how to make the best and maybe even develop new practices that will strengthen your business plans. So without further ado, we'll kick it off today. And as I said, I want this to be an engaging conversation. I will send up follow-up resources and materials for you all. You'll get an email with a copy of the recording of today's webinar for you to reference as well. So some things I want you to think about when we kick this off today are some thematic words and what I think is most important for you to consider as your consumers are looking for things to do. So at the top of the list, they're looking for fun. Everybody has been probably a little bit stir crazy, stuck inside. They want to do and experience things. And I used to start my management and marketing course at JCC with, sharing with students that if you go to a number of wineries, breweries, or distilleries in a day, or a bunch of restaurants on a trip in a weekend, at the end of the day, you're not going to remember per se necessarily what your favorite wine was or your favorite food was, as much as you will remember the place that you had the best experience at. So experience has always been the highlight of people's times and what they'll pay the most for, right? So if you think about the product offering that you may have, take water, for example, though this is slightly a hard example, but water is a relatively, for most people, free commodity. And then if you take water and turn it into a product, you have bottled water. And now people pay a little bit more for that because it's a product that somebody is selling. Now, this is where this example falls through a little bit. If you were in Europe, you go to buy water at a restaurant, somebody's serving you that, and generally in most other places, people get charged for water. But when you add the service factor, people pay for the product plus the service, right? The ultimate thing that people will pay for, and no matter what condition, is an experience. So when you take, you know, swimming, scuba diving in the St. Lawrence River, which would otherwise be free, but, you know, packaged together in this awesome package, people pay the most for however you can turn something into an experience. So we want to keep these experiences fun. We want to keep them authentic. So think about, you know, authenticity speaks to who you are, what you do really well, the core values that run your operation. People, you know, especially since a lot of the people who are going to be coming through your doors in the first couple weeks, months, I don't know how long, but initially it's going to be mostly locals or people not traveling too far away, right? We gotta harness the concept of staycation. And I think that people want to know what you do really well and enjoy that. So really take time as you're reopening to think about, you know, maybe you offer 30 items on a menu, but maybe you do 5 to 10 really well. Like if I was to, you know, word of mouth pick up on the street what, you know, Smith's Diner is known for, this is what people are constantly telling me. And maybe you think about just focusing on them on a smaller scale. Maybe you think about investing in a food truck and be able to take it on the road and partner. We're going to later, you know, talk about partnering with other businesses in the community and collaboration and how that could be a big save. So authenticity, I think, is something that should drive your reopening plans or operating post-COVID-19. Certainly safety, right? Everybody is, you know, going to probably be a little apprehensive. They want to know that you're complying. And again, I know operationally you have to follow, you know, New York Forward plans, and there's lots of papers you have to hang. There's face masks you have to wear and, you know, provide for your staff. We won't get into that today. But people, your customers, as well as your employees, want to know that you're operating safely. Diversity, right? How do you stand out? Again, whether it's by products, it's by service, by atmosphere, by ambiance. Think about what you do or could do that makes you different from every other restaurant or every other craft beverage industry or every other event planner. I think something that is contagious is passion. Right? When people see how passionate you are about what you do, they can feel it, right? And it makes them much more, it makes people want to be around an environment that is passionate about what they do. So again, that can be in your atmosphere, that certainly is portrayed through your staff, but think about how you can portray that at all times. And then again, think about local, right? So there's lots of buzzwords going on before COVID-19, right? Some hot buzzwords and trends in our industry are local, sustainable. Sometimes we even get organic and biodynamic, and these are all sorts of buzzwords. How does that relate to COVID-19? Well, part of being sustainable, if you want to, you know, be a sustainable operation, is to be, and it's for consumers to buy and purchase and support local. So it's never been a better time for businesses to, you know, think about what you, not only what you can do sustainably, but just using that as a flagship of, you know, come out, support local businesses. That's being sustainable. Buy from local producers, taste from local craft beverage producers. That's being sustainable in and of itself, which I think is a buzzword that is, again, going to drive people to your doors. So now that you're thinking about where you fit in and all those thematic words, I want you to think about your target market. And target market, by definition, is the group of people most excited to or most likely to go to your business. And that is broken down into several different demographics by geographic location, age, gender, behavioral attributes. There's many different target factors that make up your target market. So you want to think about, who do I want coming to my doors? What are they looking for? How do they find out about me? And this is where, you know, I've helped former businesses do business plans, and I used to help students do business plans. And, you know, I get that we want to have as many people coming through our doors to make sales, you know, and business profitable. But target market guides you on those best marketing practices, best staffing practices, and again, can help guide some of those thematic themes emerging as you decide to reopen. So how do you find who your target market is? You know, on your website, are you utilizing Google Analytics? Right there, you can see who's checking out your website, what pages they're looking at, what products they're most interested in, what services they want. Definitely have to make your website and your business mobile app friendly, right? That's a huge thing these days. And I think the more that you can do to make yourself present in the mobile world, you know, think about SMS, think about text messages to your customers, think about, you know, that's how people communicate and operate quite a bit now. So that might be something you hadn't considered before that you want to consider moving forward. So where and when are people coming? So you can check that via Google Analytics on your website. You can check that in Facebook Insights. You can go back a year on all of the people who are following you. And same thing with Instagram, Twitter, they all have analytics. And I highly encourage, I know it takes time, but it's really valuable for you to see who's coming. You know, are they baby boomers? Are they Gen Xers? Are they millennials? And again, you'll probably have a little bit of all, but who mostly is coming to your website, your social media, your doors? Maybe you even anecdotally take down information as people come in through your doors, because that'll help guide, again, does it make sense for me to do a radio advertisement? Do the people who are coming to me use radio? Do they use television? At what time do they watch television? What shows do they watch? Do they find value in content newsletters? Email marketing, you know, that's a relatively inexpensive way to reach your audience as well, if that's where your audience is finding out information. So when we talk about developing our customer experience, I think first you have to really, you know, hopefully you've done this in the time you had a little more time before opening, to think about who it is really that it's your primary target for consumers. And maybe based on some of those thematic items we talked about, maybe you want to target a new audience. Maybe this is the time for you to reinvent yourself and, you know, go after a new market that you hadn't previously thought about before. So once we develop who that target market is, and again, think of things, it's more than just age, gender, and where they live. Back to geographic, remember that most likely we're not going to have our international, you know, we're not going to have international guests probably the rest of the summer. I know that's our primary time to make profits in a seasonal industry. So where are your people coming from? Most likely they're going to be locals, and you need to get your locals engaged in the things you do and services you offer and the products you sell. But then probably also, you know, depending on where you're located, you're probably going to be pulling from, you know, the cities around the Thruway, right? So from Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, and Albany. Those are probably the geographic locations that you're going to want to target. And then again, based on age, gender, that's pretty easy for you to find. The other thing to consider are behavioral, like what's their, comfort level in spending? What are they looking for? What kind of environment are they looking for when they go to a place? In general, I think this whole, something else that has come out of, COVID-19 is to think about how we offer our services and products. I know you have to open at 50% capacity right now, but maybe there's new, that has encouraged you to think about how can I utilize my outdoor seating and stuff like that. So thinking about, again, who your target market is, what they enjoy. Generally, if your audience is millennials, they're looking for a more comfortable, low-key, casual, fun, like chill experience, right? So again, depends on who your target market is. So then we have to develop our wowing customer experience. And I think, we all know how important customer service is and consumer engagement, but this is where you have the chance to really excel and really make yourself and your business stand out among the pack. So I think you definitely need to have clear communication with both your employees and your guests. So part of the wowing customer service experience, you as an owner or a manager are not going to come into contact with every single person who comes through your doors, right? So what are you doing first with your employees to make sure that they're trained to succeed? And, we all know that if somebody has one bad experience, whether it's product, service, whatever at your operation, it's very hard to get them to return. So employee training, cross-training, engagement, which trickles down into consumer engagement, is critical. And I completely understand that it takes time, money, effort, and resources to train your staff, to create SOPs and standard operating procedures. Now more than ever is a great time to cross-train your staff, because you're going to probably be doing different and new things, but you're also, it's going to be really critical that you have a strong team to get you through this time. So hiring, interviewing, training is going to be critical. And then, retaining them. This industry is known for a high turnover rate, right? Especially because most of it is seasonal. So what can you do to really make yourself be the place that everybody wants to stay and is treated well? Because that definitely is conveyed to your consumers. So definitely employee engagement and training is going to be important. And I also know that it's recommended by, National Restaurant Association, Wine Institute of America. If you read any professional organization, they'll tell you that it's probably a good idea to invest in having an employee dedicated to being a COVID-19 specialist or manager in charge of, monitoring all of the changes. The changes are happening, sometimes on a daily basis, right? So making sure that somebody is following compliance, somebody is communicating with all of your staff, all the practices, and somebody who's tracking, again, all of these analytical numbers and consumer data to help you stay on top of operating with post-COVID-19. Again, I understand that all of these things cost time and money, and we're already behind on our opening timeline and trying to maximize. I'm just trying to share what I think would be helpful best practices.
Julie?
Yeah.
Jay Madison here. Just a quick question for you, because you were talking about providing that extraordinary experience for customers, having your staff. Are you aware of any online resources that folks could use to help train their staff beyond just the basics of good customer care?
Yeah, so one of the tools that I recommend that you could create, and I can share some resources, are creating a checklist, like a training checklist or a daily operating checklist. So checklists are really helpful that can, and I can find some for you or create some for you on, you know, when I get here, these are the 8 things when a server arrives that they need to check off the box. In between, you know, tables or tastings, as we turn over, check these boxes. And same thing with training. So there are manuals and trainings that I can provide. Cornell Cooperative Extension has a lot of documents, more along the operational side, but also training procedures. Actually, I can share the link in the toolbar so you all have access to it right now. They have some phenomenal resources and handouts. And I hope you all know that there are already resources, you know, like as far as the operations procedure side, there are already information available and things you can just copy, you know, not copy and paste, but get from already established places. So the link that I just shared with you all should take you to Cornell Cooperative Extension or Cornell Agritech. They have a craft beverage panel that has been putting out a lot of great information and ways to think about, again, operating post-COVID-19. More
Excellent. Thank you, Julie. That was great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions or we want to go on? Good at the moment? Okay. So back to the learning experience. Once you have your staff trained, also, I mean, now too is a time, you know, I'm a TIPS trainer, which stands for Training Intervention Procedures. It's a national organization that is trains people on the safe service of alcohol. And it's a 5-hour workshop that people take. It lowers your, it can lower your insurance. It lowers your liability in the case of ever there being an accusation of you serving somebody past the point of intoxication or underage. I mean, so when we talk about training, there's not only like the training for your daily procedures and how to work in your business and how to excel at customer service, but then there's also like actual trainings and professional development that you should think about investing, you know, that I guess down the road too, you know, think about investing. But anyway, all of these things now more than ever are being offered virtually. So you don't necessarily have to pay to send all of your staff for some of these trainings. You know, now things can be done virtually, which is a cost savings as well as a time savings. So again, another, let's call this thinking about all the silver linings that come out of operating in a more virtual world. Is everybody still there? Okay, we just changed our screen. When we talk about new products and servicing, new service designs, and I think this is probably the core of what we were focusing on today. What can you do, because you cannot have, most likely, I mean, I don't know what the governor is going to rule, but most likely we're probably not going to go back to having, at least not this year, festivals of thousands of people. Or I know that there's wineries that get 1,000 people through their tasting room on any given day, right? So in lieu of that, what can we do to make money or do this differently? And so many organizations, businesses are already doing wonderful things, right? So we know that we're all much more familiar with Zoom and working in the virtual environment. So you can provide virtual tastings, virtual demonstrations of cooking, providing recipes. And you can do all those things, but what I'm going to encourage you to do is think about how you can package this together. You know, put a strategic plan in place where X day of the week or X, you know, day of the month, you're going to provide all of your customers this on this channel, on this platform. And so you build that following. right? Rather than just a random tasting here or a random demo here. Like, put it all together. Then you can think about, maybe I offer to my loyal members or wine club members or case club or whatever your following is. And maybe this is something that you didn't do before that you finally can do, is think about how to reward those loyal repeat customers and followers. So you start to develop bronze, silver, and gold packages. And, bronze level members get access to maybe so many tastings or so many pairings or so many demos a month. And then, and that costs, maybe that's free, maybe that costs a minimal amount. Maybe your silver get all of that, plus you send them a little care package, or they get an additional tasting, or they get an additional VIP time with the owner, right? Or, think about how you can really, again, your authenticity, and another word we didn't talk about, but I think is big in the virtual and post-COVID-19 world, is transparency. Think about how you can, be transparent in everything you're doing to provide the best experience possible for your consumers. So there's the virtual world, but again, I encourage you to think about how you can package that together ahead of time to really make and build a successful following and possibly make revenues off of it. Also, think about how you can partner with your local businesses in the community. So something that we did a little teaser on, and Jay hopped that up, and if you listen to the interview, was, how do you do an intimate date night? Maybe you put out a special and say on again, certain day of the week, certain day of the month, you're going to provide a date night at your restaurant. And you're going to figure this out before you package it out and sell it to your customers. But you're going to work with your local florist to develop a certain bouquet that any customer that buys a date night is going to get. And it's going to be on their table when they arrive. And they're going to get a little care package of, a certain beverage or a certain chocolate from a chocolate producer down the street. Like, think about, or if you're a craft beverage place and you're sending this out and having them, do a date night tasting or a girls night, and, think about all the different nights. We don't have to just call it a date night, right? Date night, girls night, guys night, whatever we want, friends night. Those are all awesome, and different things to think about. But think about how you can package everything together, send it out, and think how awesome it would be for your customers if they literally get a little package in the mail. Think about how appealing you can make it look too, because that does matter. Presentation is huge, right? But whether they're walking into your restaurant and it's all at their table, or you're sending a care package out, whether you're leading a tasting or just providing a date night package where they open up and they get your, Riesling and Cabernet Franc, or, Marquette and La Crescent, whatever you're selling, whatever's in that package, right? So you got a white and a red, and you lead them through, and you give them a little note that says, thanks so much for joining us, or, tasting our products, try this chocolate and wine pairing. But if you can, ahead of time, think about that. Again, this takes time and effort and planning ahead of time. But if you can put that all together for your customers ahead of time, think of how happy and amazing it's going to be for them. People have definitely gotten accustomed to, of all age groups, ordering and getting everything online and delivered to them. So, we've seen an uptake in, obviously, to-go orders, both in the food and beverage industry. But think about how you can make it special. Think about how you can, and honestly, I think that people are going to be okay with paying a little bit more for these things. Obviously, not, you don't want to go crazy and outprice your customers, but again, VIP experiences, the special wow factor, convenience. before COVID-19, people pay for convenience, right? Again, that experience, the convenience. We're busy. We're in a hurry. I don't want to take time for a date night to stop at the flower shop, the chocolate shop, the restaurant, the liquor store, or the winery, or the brewery, or the distillery. Like, those are all the things I want to have for my date on the perfect date night. I don't have time to stop at 5 different places, right? That's a pain. In and out of, traveling or driving all over the place. So if one place put that all together for me and all I did was click a button or make a phone call, that is, where I think, people will pay for that. It's convenience and experience together, which is what people pay the most for. As well as a way for you to reach out and, again, get those loyal customers.
Julie, apologize for interrupting, but a question, and if I don't ask the question right away, I forget it. This is Jay Madison. We've had local wineries, especially on the smaller side of our wineries, and local farm businesses like Cross Island Farms up at Wellesley Island. They've worked together to have events that I think are very similar to what you're talking about, where the winery is providing the atmosphere and the wine, or, for example, Cross Island Farms with their edible forest is doing that, and they have food pairings and things like that. How does that fit into what you're talking about?
I think it fits in perfectly. I think it's about making the connections with those people. Farm to table was already a hot buzzword and theme word too, right? So grapes to glass, farm to table, farm to door, all of those concepts. I think it's now more than ever a great time for, these local farms to reach out. Somebody has to take the time and effort to reach out. So, I would encourage you to do that, no matter where, whether you're the producer or the retailer, consumer, but think of ways you can attractively market your farm fresh products to be a part of a special wine and food pairing. And so, think about how you could suggest pairing X, Y, and Z products that you produce with X, Y, and Z wines. And then together figure out what your costs are, what you're hoping to make as a profit margin, logistically how you're going to get the products. I guess that's probably a little bit more challenging the more you provide fresh products and produce that may have an expiration date, right? We don't want to risk the quality of the products, but think about how you can put that together in a package and then deliver it. So again, another thing you have to think about is the delivery aspect. Are you paying a company to do this? Are you now employing a person who's going to do this personal delivery? Are you going to have somebody manage it on a website? But I think that it's definitely a trend we'll see more of. Did that answer your question well enough, Jay?
Yeah, I think so. That was an example that I could think of to relate to what you were saying. And it seemed like, based on my conversations with the Cross Island Farms folks and the winery, which I think was the Cape Winery, that seemed to fit into what you were describing as far as these micro events go. So it was pretty cool what they did, and I think you answered my question. Yes, thank you.
Before we, if I could also kind of jump in here, because there's one thing, being the marketing guy here, that I found interesting. It also fits in with what you're saying about the date nights or the events, and sort of before you get into the micro events. And it's something that the national brands seem to do a much better job of, is like contact management. And it kind of goes back also, what you're saying earlier, like an email, whether it be a newsletter. I get these I get text alerts from national brands that I don't even really frequent hardly at all. But and it's like they know me, like I get them at 11, like right when the first time that I'm starting to think about lunch happens. And it seems like something, So of course I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, how does a local business, generate those contacts? I mean, of course I'm wondering, hey, like, do they offer, a free refill or something? If I get an email, and a phone number, I'll throw you a free app or something. I know these things sound ridiculous, but I guess I just wanted to, is there any techniques that you've had, and this is totally out of left field, that as far as is generating, the database of your customers, so that you could take advantage of, like you'd mentioned, email marketing or, text, and that stuff that, I know these folks are so busy, but you have your contact list. That's easy to reach out to, and, out of sight, out of mind. Like you drive down and you're like, oh, geez, I'd love to eat there because I had an awesome meal last time, but versus, hey, boy, that sounds tasty right now, So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there are, of course, tons of data management programs you can invest in that allow you to put in, tons of information on your customers, and they can probably cost between $1,000 and $5,000 a year, depending on the audience and number of people you have. I know we're looking at cost savings ways to not spend money, but do these things. If you have somebody who's really good in Excel, you can do the same thing, right? Just keep track. How you obtain that information, emails and newsletters are great. That's why I'm encouraging in every basic idea I'm giving you to, make some sort of loyalty member program where you get their name, phone number, and email so that you can communicate. And I agree with you, Marshall, like text messaging is the best. Again, whether you want to invest in buying a system that will automatically send them out for you, whether you want to pay a staff member to do that, that's something you're going to have to figure out, cost benefit analysis. But to your point, emails, we get 1 million a day. So if you're going to invest in that, make sure that you throw something in. Maybe you do throw in there, all of our customers who bring in this email get a free appetizer with their dinner. And I know we don't want to, in hospitality, a big thing is we're always like, oh, you don't want to have to keep giving things away, right? That's true. So maybe it's another special, maybe it's just an upgrade to a large instead of, pay for a medium, get a large.
Yeah.
There are tactics to do that, but I think one of the big things in wowing customer experience is the, high touch or high personalization factor, right? Yeah. And another big thing, even as you're engaging with people on a personal level, like you remember somebody's name, they come in, if you have somebody who's coming into your winery or your brewery or your restaurant every week, you should know their name, and you should know. I used to work at a bagel shop in high school, and literally the lunch rush, people would have the same exact sandwich every single day, the same exact coffee. People are creatures of habit. And not only did I know their names, but it got to a point after a couple of months, I'd see them coming. I'd have the sandwich ready to go by the time they got to because I knew exactly what they were going to get. Like that shows a level of care and wowing that is irreplaceable, especially to people who are busy and, so that personal touch, I guess, and however you can do that. But I do agree that the more information you can get on your customers and retain them and utilize them is critical.
All right, I'm going to get my mug off this thing here for you again. Sorry.
Back to other examples of experiences we can give. So another example I have for restaurants and craft beverage, and maybe you used to hold wine and food pairings once a month, and you would sell out the room at 100 people, do a 5-course pairing. Now you have to operate at 50% capacity. So how do you make the same amount of revenue? Well, consider maybe you do them 2 or 3 times a month. Maybe it becomes, instead of one day a month, it becomes a Wednesday special. And you get the same, customers can choose the same experience, still get the 5-course dinner, but it's in a more intimate setting. Play up the romance, the VIP environment, the ambiance. Again, maybe you can partner with a local flower or chocolate shop and have something on the table as they walk in. And because it's less people, to save costs, because I know that that's an important consideration, we'll think about, well, instead of needing 4 servers for 100 people, now I only need 2 for 25. So, and instead of needing 3 chefs in the back, now I only need 1 or 2. So I think there's a way to manageably try to make up for some of the events. I mean, I feel for you on if you're an event center that had a ton of weddings and they all canceled, I get that there in some ways is not able to recap all of that. But I have seen smaller scale weddings, right? You can have up to 10 people, and I've seen them done virtually. I mean, you can still provide the ambience, throw that to your bride and groom. You can still get married along the St. Lawrence River in my vineyard, or you at my restaurant, or again, we're at whatever event center you may be, and you're going to have this private, intimate, and we're going to, because you can't have 100 people there, we're going to provide XYZ, and it probably shouldn't cost you much to provide these little extras. And, you can virtually project it to the rest of your friends and family, or maybe instead of the location you had, like you think about having them stroll through the vineyard. Another big thing is thinking about utilizing space that you never had before, and a huge advantage a lot of upstate New York producers and businesses have is that they have a lot of land, right? And so that's awesome, because the best way to be safe and operate right now is social distancing. So, think about throwing some tables out in your vineyard. Granted, there are times when you have to spray and it will be out of operation and stuff like that. But, think about adding, and I know many of you have already done this, think about adding outdoor seating. That will help you, if you can only operate at 50% capacity inside, maybe you add another 25 to 30% in your offerings outside. And again, if you spin it in the right form, it's not like, oh, this is how we have to operate. We have to put you outside, because no, it's, why don't you watch the sunset in my beautiful vineyard and experience something you've never experienced before? Again, try to frame it in the silver lining of this allows us to do something we've never been able to do before. If you can utilize your outdoor spacing, try to do events more frequently on a smaller scale. Again, spin it as this is a VIP thing. Maybe you charge a little bit more. Because again, people are looking for things to do, and they want to know that they're going to be safe and comfortable when they do it. And if you can provide all of those things, then I think you'll still be able to get a lot of revenue. In addition to all of the things you're already out doing, the to-goes and providing virtual things. We know that online ordering, both in the craft beverage and restaurant industry, has been huge. Thinking of ways to do specials and packages there, or eliminate ship, that's all been done already. So that's why I really think it's time to think about how you can manageably, more frequently provide smaller scale VIP events in a safe manner, in a safe location that you weren't able to do before. Any questions so far before I jump on? I know we're actually coming to close to the end of our time, and before we do, I definitely want to talk about, so you now have all these ideas of how to reach these people and who your target market is. You've trained your staff, you've done cross-training, you've provided checklists as implementation, make it fun, make it engaging. If you can think of ways to provide some sort of commission or benefit packages, like if they reach so many sales, they get a bonus or a percentage of that, think of ways that don't cost you money, hopefully, or don't cost you a lot, but can really raise employee morale. and then that'll trickle down into those VIP customer service things that we just went through. Now, how you promote this, this goes hand in hand. We already spent a lot of time on your target market. Really think about, you know, this. I think a lot of businesses have already done this, but think about your website. Think about its functionality. Is it mobile friendly? Is there a way you can work with an app company to get your product or services out? Think about, here's something you should do as a homework assignment. Go, as soon as we're done, at some point in the near future, type into Google, wherever you're located in upstate New York, you know, what is the best restaurant in Clayton, New York? What is the best restaurant in Rochester, New York? What is the best winery in Alexandria Bay, New York? Or the Thousand Islands, but just type in what is the best, whatever business you are, and see what ranks, right? In a Google search, you want to be on that top 10 list, right? So that's what everybody does. They type in their phone, oh, I'm going to go to the Thousand Islands for the weekend, or oh, I'm going to go to the Finger Lakes for the weekend. Let me type in the best places to get food, the best places to get craft beverages, the best hotels to stay at, the best things to do. That's how people search, as simple as that. And if you're not on those lists, it's going to be hard for people to find you. So I highly encourage you to figure out where you rank in Google search and how to raise your profile there. Maybe consider Google Ads for the first time if you're not already doing that. But yeah, you know, try to put yourself, once you figure out who your target market is, think in that frame of mind and ask those types of questions. Another tactic that is probably seems a little old school, but is something that may be a lost art that is a good time, since everybody has one of these, is think about reaching out to people via phone. Especially if you're cultivating these loyalty membership programs. You know, we know that most times when we call somewhere these days, we get some sort of automation or, you know, voicemail system. We don't get live humans anymore, right? And part of that high touch or personalization, hospitality is being a human and having empathy and feelings and, you know, the ability to talk and share and relate. And we're all going through these hard times together. And how can I get you to come through my doors? So maybe you consider having staff training or a staff person, like create a list when we collect that list that Marshall and I were talking about earlier of name, phone number, and email. Maybe in addition to content, email, and newsletters and social media, maybe you think about good old-fashioned phone calls. Again, it'll depend on your operation. It'll depend on if you're offering a product or a service, but that is another way to get your businesses or your services and their products out there in a clearly communicated, safe manner. So that was something else I wanted to make sure we touched upon. I do think investing in text messaging is the up and coming way. Content, I mean, we could go through pros and cons if anybody has any questions over the pros and cons of using social media versus content, newsletters versus, you know, I can't believe I'm even saying old school radio and TV. It's not old school, but you know, all these different forms compared to social media, website, content, newsletters. I mean, there are so many ways to communicate yourself. Again, I encourage you to think about collaborating and reaching out to, you know, the agencies that do promote you. So reach out to your local chambers of commerce, tourism centers. Think of how you can all together promote these yourself as well as other businesses in the area, because we all know that in a tourist region, the more things there are for tourists to do in general, the more tourists are going to come, or the more we'll get our locals out to experience fun things.
Julie, I just have to bring up that old school radio comment that you made. You were just on my radio show, so just remember that. So,
that's why it's not, but I think we forget about some of these. We take for granted that that is the better term. I'm sorry, Jay. We take
well, I had to come on and bust your chops about that. You know, the old school radio comment. But anyways, I'll go back to my corner.
No, certainly not. And that's a good point. So it really just depends on who your target market is and where they're listening. I love listening to the radio. I don't watch TV. I just listen to the radio as I'm doing, when I'm driving and cleaning and all the other things I have to get done. Just know who your people are. But I do think, investing in multiple forms that are most effective for your target market are important. Just throwing out a couple of different ones. Something I want you to think about as we come to the conclusion of today's presentation is a marketing professor I had at RIT years ago. This was like more than a decade ago, so I'm not quoting it per se, but over and over again, he kept saying the only competitive advantage a business truly has is to, at any point in time, be able to take what they're doing, completely change it, and move forward and succeed. And at the time, being 21, that didn't strike nearly as strongly with me as it does. I mean, I've always kept it in the back of my head, but how true. Like, nobody could control this. Nobody saw this coming. Again, my heart goes out to all of you for having to comply with all of these changes and the amount of money you've had to spend on, new operating procedures and supplies and cleaning supplies and plexiglass and masks. Like, it's commendable that you are going to open and that you are doing this for the community. So, these are all tools to help you succeed, hopefully, and ideas, but know that, again, hopefully it's a silver lining of, think about how you could maybe you've been wanting to try something new and different for a long time, and this is that push to do it. You're going to probably have to try some of these tactics. Note that some of these new things might fail. That doesn't mean anything is a failure. You have to try and find what does succeed and then focus on your successes, because there's going to be a lot of successes out of these too. So, do consider evaluating this whole process, what worked really well, what things you might change. This is where social media is great. Put a poll out there. Hey, we've been open now for 3 weeks doing these events. What's your favorite thing? Maybe right now you throw it on social media. Hey, we're reopening this week. We're considering doing a special on either our chicken parm or our strip steak or our pasta primavera. What do you think we should do? Like, get feedback in a fun manner from the people you want to come through your doors. That doesn't cost you anything. It makes them feel valued for getting their opinions and could really provide you with some valuable insight. So, focus on successes, evaluate what works and doesn't work, keep trying new things, and I wish you all, as we're wrapping up, I wish you all the best of luck. There will be, as I said, a copy of the recording coming out with some resources in addition to that Cornell site. Note that obviously the governor's page, New York Forward, has lots of operational information. Another website I encourage all retailers and craft beverage operations to check out is the New York State Liquor Authority's website. They have a lot of information. Cornell, National Restaurant Association, the Wine Institute of America has a lot of operation procedures. There's a lot of great resources available to you. More than ever, people are throwing things out. Even I can send a link to you there's something called General Assembly, which is an online, it's actually in person and online, but they offer a lot of classes just on marketing. And due to the pandemic, they've offered free like intro to marketing, intro to Google Analytics, intro to web design. They're offering free webinars every Friday. Anybody can register for them. So I can share that link with you too. But I guess back to, you know, a silver lining is things have been made much more readily available to you. Take the time maybe now to spend a little time learning about some new tactics and resources that could potentially provide you with good margins and revenues on return.
Awesome. That was a lot of stuff.
Good question. Thank you, everybody.
We're going to give a couple minutes here for questions. Here's one. Definitely like the link for the free info on classes, which we will do.
Marshall, in the Q&A section, we have a question. Is there a fee for the TIP 5-hour program?
It does cost, it depends on the trainer. So if somebody's interested in that, like I said, I can do it for you. Usually you will find most trainers charge between $40 and $50 a person, but it is based on the trainer. If you have a larger group, I mean, I'd certainly be willing to talk and work something out with you. And for the first time ever, it is able to be done virtually. Part of TIPS, which is a national certification, is a ATAP requirement that is enforced by the New York State Liquor Authority that just applies for New York State, and that's an additional part of TIPS that you can have that looks really good for the New York State Liquor Authority. You can also investigate. I can, the website for TIPS training, if anybody is interested, I have memorized. It's gettips.com. Oh, whoops, I didn't share that with the group. So you can look for, they do have online training as well. Like straight out, you don't have to go through a trainer. You can just completely have your staff do it online.
Okay.
And I'm just able to find that General Assembly link for you all right now as everybody's thinking about any other questions they may have. And I'm trying to think of any other resources. Like I said, the Wine Institute of America provides some great resources. Wine America and New York State Restaurant Association, Sanitation and Safety. I know ServSafe, which is a restaurant certification. Remotely one person in restaurant. For a while, we're offering like online training to be to be certified for that too. Some at a discount, some just online for the first time ever. So do pay attention to this. Might be an advantageous time to get your trained at a lower cost than usual, and at the same time where you might have more time to make this happen. I am right now getting the link for the Free Fridays General Assembly. It's been going on for a couple of months. And like I said, they do have programs you can buy into and 5-week courses and 1-day workshops and all that. But they have been providing free workshops on Fridays. Hopefully everybody, I don't know why it's not letting you just click it from there, but that should be the link to sign up. You just register for free ahead of time, and they provide you with the recordings after as well.
And we'll put all this stuff on the
email
materials
with the
that come out
recording.
too. So, yeah, cool. All right. Anybody have anything else? I'm sorry, it seems like I'm having a little bit of a delay on mine, so I hope that I don't sound too terrible.
No, you sound fine, Marshall. We had a little bit of an audio issue going on, bandwidth issue, but I think it's clear right now.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not seeing anything else. This is one of those things people sort of, digest it, and then they might have a question, and they could certainly email me, and I will pass it on. And And in the stuff that we'll send out, we'll have Julie's contact information on that.
Yeah.
Obviously, as well.
I'm throwing it in the toolbar as we speak for everybody. Feel free to email me or call me with any follow-up. You know, if everybody could share their feedback on, we are having another webinar on June 30th as a follow-up to this, what kind of information you're looking for specifically or would like to dive deeper into, that would be great for us to prepare. As well as, you know, if you find benefit in sharing, we've talked about, would it be beneficial for you all to be able to talk and share best practices and kind of have like an open office hour? I'm happy to jump on some hour at a convenient day and time, maybe next Tuesday, for everybody to just follow up with maybe some things you've tried, some things that worked, how we can, you know, better make some